Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of T-Dog RC. I'm Tim, and in this video we are finishing off the Spitfire from VQ Models. We're almost there with it. I've just got a last few bits to do. The main bits I need to do are putting the radio gear in, mounting the engine for the last time, and getting the fuel tank installed and all that sort of stuff. Got a box of bits here with all the things in that I need. So I've got a FreeSky TD R10 radio. I've got a switch, nice high quality switch that I need to install. And then I've got a bunch of high tech, these are actually high voltage metal gear digital servos, but I'm not running it on high voltage, I'm just running it on standard because the undercarriage is only 6 volts. So got all those bits to do, but that should see the model finished in this episode, and then all I've got to do after that is get the engine running on the model, and then we can take it flying. So without further ado, let's get this on the bench and let's get stuck in. Okay, so things we've got to do in this episode. I've got a box of bits here, so we've got to get all this lot installed. We've got a switch, actually got a Spectrum switch, but it's just a nice quality one. FreeSky tandem receiver, got to get that mounted, and then I've got a battery. This is a 6 volt 2500 milliamp, as you can see. Obviously with this you can use this to help with the CFG, so we won't put this in position until we've got everything else set up on the plane, engine mounted, etc. And then we can slide this around and put it in the best position for the CG. And then I have some servos. So we've got these high-tech, these are actually high voltage servos. I think that one is, or is it one of these ones? Yes, actually these ones that are the high voltage servos. I bought these for the elevators and the rudder. These other servos, actually I don't need them, so these are just going to my spares box. Yeah, so we've got to get these mounted. In fact, that's going to be my next job, getting the rudder and elevator servo mounted. We've got to get the engine reinstalled. I'm not going to put the cowl, I'll put the cowl on to finish the video off just so you can see what it looks like kind of done, but I won't permanently put the cowl in place because I want to run the engine in and probably do the first flight without the cowl on potentially. So first job, as I've said, is get elevator and rudder servos installed, and as you can see here, I think I've already got the push rods installed. So we did that in the last video. Fairly simple system on the VQ models. It's just a plastic outer with a metal push rod. So it's not exactly like a snake. It is like a proper push rod, and they're not like the smoothest, to be honest. It is quite tight to move it, but with those servos that I've bought, metal geared servos and 6 volt battery, we should have plenty of torque, so it shouldn't be a problem. I was going to try and run this on a high voltage setup, but I can't because the undercarriage will only support up to 6 volts, and I could get a BEC for that, but basically I just thought, oh, do you know what, I'll just run it off 6 volts because it should be absolutely fine for a model like this. It's not like a 3D model or anything like that where I need really high performance servos. So once we've got the servos installed, we then use these connectors which you get in the kit, which you may have seen before, just these sorts of things. So the push rods go into there, so it's basically like a 2 into 1. So you put the 2 push rods in one side, and then you have 1 push rod coming out the other side which goes to the servo, and then you secure everything down with some grub screws, and of course not forgetting the Loctite because you don't want these to come undone. So let's get these servos installed. Fairly straightforward setup. Let's get one of these out so we can have a look at it. Nice servos these are, high-tech digital metal geared, as I said, and these ones are the high voltage ones. So I'll get those mounted, got to get the rubber grommets in and stuff like that, and then fairly simple job of just drilling the holes out and getting those mounted in place. So I'll get that done, and then I'll show you how we fasten up the push rods. Okay, hopefully you can see this okay. I've got the servos mounted as per the instructions. So you have one, so the control arm's further back towards the tail, and this one's further forwards. In the instructions it actually shows you to put them in the other way round, but they don't line up with the push rods then, so you have to put them in this way round, so kind of ignore the instructions on that one. So basically we've got a small push rod with a Z bend in, which that goes into the servo. It's a really nice fit actually on these high-tech control arms, servo arms. I didn't have to drill those out, just went in perfect. So you're going to slide this piece on the middle one there. Just going to have to put my phone down for this bit. I'm just trying to get the torch off the phone so you can see it a bit better. So that one slides on there like that, so that's going to connect to the servo, and then you've kind of just got to fiddle around a bit and get the other two lined up. The only thing you have to watch out for is there's holes for the grub screws and holes for the push rods, so make sure you don't put the push rods in the grub screw holes, but it's not a problem if you do. You just take it off and do it again basically. So that goes in there like that, and then I've already trimmed down the push rods, but I just need to trim down this servo push rod because it's way too long, because it comes back to about here. So just need to trim that off with my wire cutters, and then a bit of Loctite in there, grub screws in, and that locks that whole mechanism in place, and then that's going to move both the tail wheel and the rudder at the same time. Exactly the same for the elevators, and obviously you want to get the elevators all square, etc. Before you tighten up the grub screws. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the grub screws in, but I'm not going to Loctite them at this stage, and when I come to set the model up on the radio I will do it then, because that will give me a little bit better. It's actually easier to adjust these than it is to adjust the horns, clevises should I say, at the other end. So I'll wait until I've done that, and then once I'm happy with the position I'll then Loctite them in position. So I'll just snip this one off, leave myself a bit of material to play with. There we go, that's all lined up. So we get the grub screws in, and then I'll get the elevators done, and that is the rudder and elevator servos installed basically. Okay, so moving on to the engine now. I've got it mounted back on, and I've got that secured into place with some lock nuts. So next job is I've just got to get the throttle set up. So there's a little outer here which I've cut to size, and I've already made the hole a while ago, and that's just going to slot in there. And then in here where we've got the servo, obviously that's just sort of flopping around, so I need to secure it. So I've just got a bit of light ply, stuck two pieces together like that just to make a block with a hole in it, and I'm just going to glue that about there, so just in front of the servo. You can just about see there, I know my hand's in the way, but so yeah, glue that there, and then that's going to give the outer some support, so that should be fine. And then for the actual throttle cable, it's already pre-bent with a Z bend in it like that, but I've got no way of getting that in hooked into the throttle. Just here you can just see the throttle arm there. I've got to get that Z bend threaded into there, but then you can't obviously get it into the hole. So what I've got to do is just undo a screw here and remove this throttle arm, thread this through, actually hook it on to the throttle arm, and then push the cable through, and then just fasten the throttle arm back on, and then we can get it hooked up to the servo. So that's going to be my next job. I just need to cut this down as well because it's absolutely massive. I don't need it as long as that. So I'm going to crack on with that, and I'll show you that all working on the throttle. Okay, so we got the servo hooked up there, and that's moving nicely, and it's not catching on anything, which is good. And then in terms of the actual throttle movement, I don't know how well you can see that in there, probably not that well. Okay, so in terms of actual throttle movement, you can see we've got the full range there, fully open, fully closed. So now we've done that, I can move on to getting the engine plumbed in, getting the fuel tank fixed up, so that's going to be the next step. Okay, so next job I've got is I need to fit the fuel tank. I'm just going to use the stock fuel tank. It's a little bit small, but I think it'll be fine. I think I'll still get 8 minutes quite easily out of this, which is plenty of time. So we just got to fit the little components to it, and quite handily they've already pre-bent the tubes. So there's this top one's just a filler tube, so I'm just going to have that come in into the this top part of the where the hatch is with a little bung in it, so I can just fill it up using that. And then we've got this one goes to the exhaust to give you the pressure into the fuel tank, so that just goes in to the fuel tank like that, so it points up towards the top. And then this one's going to be your main fuel line, and they give you a clunk in the bag as well to attach to that, but what they haven't done is given you any hose to set this up. So I just need to cut a piece of fuel hose, join that there, and obviously join it to the clunk, and then just get the measurement right for that. So I've got some spare fuel tube. In fact, I've got loads of it, bought some not that long ago. So we just need to take a sort of rough measurement, and then we can play around with this because there's quite a long pipe on that. So let's always try and cut it nice and straight as well, because it will go on better. So let's see what we've got like that. So we thread that on there. Put the clunk on there, like that. And then we can stick this in here and see where we're at. Okay, at the moment, it doesn't feel too bad. Okay, yeah, first attempt, we're just slightly too long, because you can hear that the clunk's getting stuck, so I've got to get this back off again. It's a bit of a pain. It's only just out by a few mils, I would say. So all I'm probably going to do is just push it up the pipe a bit more. Still not quite there, just a tiny little bit too long. So this time I will just trim a tiny little touch off. Let's try that. Third time lucky. There we go, that's absolutely perfect now. Clunk's getting right into the corners. When I move it, you can't see it on the camera, but I can see it just about there. But it's still moving nice and freely, and I think it's moving top to bottom. Maybe it just needs pulling a little bit out, just to allow it to move up and down. There we go. Cool. Okay, so we'll get that tightened up. The other thing you do just need to make sure is that your exhaust pipe is definitely pointing to the top, because obviously it can be quite easy to put it in and then twist it by accident. The easiest way I've found to do that is just hold it up to a light, and you can just about see. And it is in my case. So we'll get this screw tightened up, and that should lock it all into place. Don't want to like massively over tighten this. Just sort of nip it up. That should be enough to seal that up. Okay, all good. So that's all set up. So let's have a look at how we're going to put it inside and get it mounted. Okay, so I've got the fuel tank all plumbed in. So we've got the filler cap here with a bung on the end. That's going to kind of go back on itself like that, so it just is going to be poking about in here, so I can easily just take that off, fill it up. Then we've got the pressure pipe, which is going to go to the silencer, which is going to be off here, and then here we've got the main fuel feed with a filter on. And what I've decided to do, whoops, just drop the tank. I've just got some of this foam, it's about 10 mils thick, and that's just going to go in there like that, and then that actually wedges the fuel tank in really nicely, so it's quite a tight fit. Just sort of quickly show you. So I have to sort of push it down and then push it in like that, and that's pretty solid as it is. But then what I'm going to do, there's a couple of slots in the wood platform below, the ply platform, so I'm just going to put a cable tie around there, and I'll just secure it in place with a bit of E6000 glue just to stop the cable tie from moving around, and that should stop the tank from moving anywhere. So that should be good, that should be all sorted and plumbed in. Then last job then is just going to be getting the receiver in, getting the battery mounted, and getting the radio gear all hooked up. Okay, so it's time to get the receiver installed. I've got one of these very nice brand new FR Sky TDR10s, which I showed on episode 1. So this is one of FrSky's new receivers, and it's called a tandem receiver. You can see just there, and this basically runs 2.4 gigs and 900 megs. So you've actually got 3 aerials on this. You've got the standard 2.4 aerials here, and then you've got this T aerial, which is the 900 meg one, and basically if it loses the 2.4 signal, then the 900 automatically takes over, so it's got failsafe built into it. And this is a 10 channel, and it's a nice compact receiver as well, but still has 10 channels, so really good receiver. And what I'm going to do, I've just been having a play around, but I think I'm actually going to put the receiver here like this, and then feed all the servo cables up from this side and plug them in along here. And then the aerials, I can actually get this one, for example, can get it behind this sort of bulkhead here through these holes, so it's actually out the way of the servos and everything, and it's a bit closer to the side of the model. And then this one I'll just loop through this hole here and around there, and then the 900 meg one I'll just put that up here somewhere just out the way, and then that leaves me plenty of space to install the battery. So I can put the battery here right at the front, or I can just put it here, which would be sort of the most logical place to put it, or if it's already nose heavy, then I can get it in down here as well underneath these. I'll just have to drill a couple of holes in there just to get a cable tie around. So I've got quite a lot of range there. It's a good probably 50 centimetres from there to there, where I can potentially have the battery, apart from obviously this middle bit here where the servos are. So once I've got the receiver installed, what I'm going to do is put the wings on, take it outside. I'm going to get the cow sort of just temporarily put on, put the prop on, put the nose cone on, so it's more or less as it will be flying weight wise. Check the centre of gravity without the battery, and then I can play around with where I'm going to put the battery. So I'll get this receiver installed, and I'll get all that done with the CG, and I'll show you basically. In fact, what I'll do, actually this will be the last time you see it in bits, as it were, and then the next little clip I'll show you, it will be more or less all ready to go, ready to fly. I'll put the cowl on so we can finish the video off and you can see what it looks like, but it won't be permanently put in place because I'm going to take it off to get the Sato run in. But yeah, so that will be coming up, and that'll be it done really. Okay, so here it is, all finished at last. I've just temporarily put the nose cone on. I've still got to sort that out, but the cowl goes on really nice, and I've just secured it in place with a pin at the moment, but obviously got to bolt that all in place and I need to take it off anyway so I can get the engine running. Got to put at least another 2 tanks through the engine to get that running. But yeah, it's all done. For some reason, this seems to have taken me absolutely ages to get sorted. I don't know why, but sort of struggled to get into the workshop. But that's just the way life is sometimes. The only frustrating thing is to get it to balance. I've ended up having to put a load of weight in the nose. It was about 300 grams, which is pretty shocking. That's not far off a pound almost. So what I've ended up doing is getting a much bigger battery, and I've managed to put that right at the front, and then I've had to put an extra bit of weight there, but now it balances perfect on the centre of gravity. So I'm really pleased with the way it looks. It's gone together really nicely, and I'm really looking forward to the maiden flight. As I say, need to just run another 2 tanks through the engine, so I'm going to take it down to the flying field, put it on the bench and just get those run through. And then once I've got those run through and I'm happy that the engine's running okay, I'll get all the cow buttoned up and we'll take it for the maiden, which I will be filming as I always do. So if you're interested in seeing that, then make sure you hit the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. And if you've enjoyed following along with this build series, then and you haven't subscribed, then hit the subscribe button. It's the sort of thing I'm into, sort of Balsa, fixed wing nitro primarily. So if that's the sort of thing that you're into, then why not join me, subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. I'd love to have you on board. And for all those people who've already subscribed and support the channel and all the comments and all that sort of stuff, I really appreciate it. And the last thing you can do to help me out, if you don't want to subscribe, at least just give me a thumbs up and give me a like. That will help me out on YouTube massively as well. Okay, so that wraps this series up. As I said, it seems to take me forever to build this one, but on to the next one now. I've got a really, really exciting project coming up, which isn't balsa and it isn't nitro. Bit of a clue there maybe, but it's something very, very special. It's a bit of a bucket list, so you want to subscribe to find out what that's going to be next. Okay, that's enough waffle from me, and I'll see you soon for the next one.